World leaders are in New York for the first day of the United Nations General Assembly. And it was the war in Syria that played out on the world stage, with President Obama and Russia's President Putin sharing their divergent views on how to resolve the conflict, which has led to a humanitarian crisis as thousands become refugees fleeing to Europe, stressing those already very fragile economies. Michelle Caruso-Cabrera reports.
How to resolve the crisis in Syria at the top of the agenda here at the UN, especially in the speeches by both President Obama and President Putin. President Obama told the UN General Assembly that while the U.S. is willing to work with Iran and Russia to fight the terrorist group ISIS, which would help stabilize Syria, he also said the dictator of the country, Bashar al-Assad, should step down.
Yes, realism dictates that compromise will be required to end the fighting and ultimately stamp out ISIL. But realism also requires a managed transition away from Assad and to a new leader, and an inclusive government that recognizes there must be an end to this chaos so that the Syrian people can begin to rebuild.
But Russian leader Vladimir Putin is a strong supporter of Assad, having sent extensive amounts of military equipment to the Syrian leader to help him fight the terrorist insurgents in his country. Fighter jets, attack helicopters, tanks, and surface-to-air missiles. He's also providing military intelligence. And Putin made clear his support for Assad again today.
We think it is an enormous mistake to refuse to cooperate with the Syrian government and its armed forces who are violently fighting terrorism face to face. We should finally acknowledge that no one but President Assad's armed forces and Kurds militia are truly fighting the Islamic State and other terrorist organizations in Syria.
With President Obama unwilling to take a more interventionist role in Syria, Putin has a wide opening to get involved and put his stamp on the region. The U.S. and Europe have been trying to isolate him economically with sanctions in retaliation for his involvement in Ukraine. However, with the massive refugee crisis engulfing countries like Germany, they may be softening their stance toward Putin, especially if they think he can help. For Nightly Business Report, Michelle Caruso-Cabrera, the UN.